Good evening. Welcome to the July 12th Village Board Work Session. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we do have a legislative session. Should we go ahead and start with attendance and then do our announcements and then go into a legislative session, or save announcements till the work session?
Just legislate and then.
Why don't we just
all
take
the
the
other
attendance and we can do these?
Get this stuff, that's fine. All right, who's acting as our clerk tonight?
I will be happy to be clerk.
Thank you very much, sir.
Trustee Levin,
Here,
Trustee Kazada,
Present.
Trustee Codman,
Present.
Trustee Bazemore,
Present.
Mayor Garrity.
Present.
Item A on the agenda, approval of minutes, June 21st, 2017 regular meeting. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the June 21st, 2017 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
On the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item B on the agenda, authorization for village to accept payment and satisfaction of foreclosed tax lien for 48 Ellis Place. Whereas in accordance with the Ossining Village Charter, Article 4, the village treasurer is charged with the duty of collecting real property taxes from persons named in the tax roll. And in accordance with New York State Real Property Tax Law, Section 1110, the village treasurer has the authority on or before the expiration of the applicable redemption period to accept payment of real property taxes from such persons, along with all charges authorized by law for real property subject to delinquent tax liens. And whereas the applicable redemption period expired as of June 12, 2017, for the 2014 real property taxes, which had become delinquent tax liens in May 2015, and with such expiration of the redemption period, the treasurer has no authority without action by the Board of Trustees to accept further payments. And whereas, notwithstanding the expiration of such redemption period, the representative of the property owner for a certain real property located in the village at 48 Ellis Place has provided sufficient proof of, 1, an ability to pay in full all taxes and assessments against the subject property to bring the account up to date, and 2, the ability to make full and complete settlement and satisfaction of the foreclosed delinquent tax lien. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees hereby authorizes and directs the treasurer to accept payment in an amount sufficient to pay in full the total amount, including any interest, penalties, and other charges authorized by law, of the real property taxes and any tax liens, both pending and foreclosed, for property located at 40 Ellis Place, Section Block and Lot 89.20-3-75, in the Village of Ossining, and authorizes any and all necessary filings or notifications to evidence or release of said liens against the real property. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
second.
On the board. Sir Clerk.
Madam Mayor, just to advise, with regard to this, the property owners did come in earlier in the week. They did produce a check, which, based upon the resolution, if it's approved by the board, will be deposited. It is for the full amount of all the taxes that are owed on this property. This is one of the properties that was up for auction by the town later this month, and it has been fully redeemed by the property owner upon this. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Not many people oppose accepting a check.
Do we have a motion to adjourn the legislative session and go into work session?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. With that, I thank you very much. I do have a couple of announcements, exciting big news announcements to open us up with, or kind of significant. One of them is just an update that you'll recall back in April, the village board put out notice inviting folks to apply for the village manager position. And we were really pleased by the pool of folks, over a couple dozen folks who reached out and said they would be interested in leading the administration here at the village. And then we have gone through now 3 cycles of interviews with some excellent candidates, and then with each successive round we've narrowed it down a little bit, and we just wanted to let you know that we have gotten to a point that we feel really good about, but we don't have news yet. But it's been a while, so we wanted folks to know that we are moving forward with that, and as soon as we are able to give you a definitive path forward, we will be. Folks had been asking, and we wanted you to know that it is moving forward very well, and I know that it's been a real pleasure working with the board and with some really important key staff throughout this process. And all of the applicants have been really terrific. We've learned a lot from each of them. It's been a really interesting process. Of course, it hasn't moved as quickly as we would like sometimes. Village government, for some reason, doesn't slow down in the summer, so there's always a lot going on keeping us busy. Not least of which is, take out your calendars. The Downtown Redevelopment Working Committee will be meeting 2 weeks from now, actually 2 weeks minus a day, because we have to use a different day of the week. We're going to be meeting on Tuesday, July 25th. So our regular work session will be happening a day early. And the reason for that is because we want to be able to hold that meeting in the library at the theater so that everyone knows you are welcome to come. We'd like to have as much participation as possible that evening. This committee, they've been to our meetings here a few times now and given us updates. Most of the committee is made up of community members. There's 15 community members who have been working diligently, usually multiple times a week between full committee and subcommittee meetings, exploring how we may want to best move forward with further revitalizing our downtown. And on the 25th, they will be presenting their recommendations to the board at the Ossining Public Library. We may start a little earlier than usual. We may start at 7 p.m. So mark your calendar for 7. If you're there a few minutes early, it just means you get a good parking spot and a good seat. But I think we may start at 7 p.m. There's been a request for that, though that's not final. Our usual time would be 7:30. And that meeting will be recorded. It doesn't get broadcast live from the library, but I expect it'll be up the next day on the village website and broadcast on television. And I anticipate that this meeting and the recommendations from this group will precipitate a re-engagement of conversation in a new way, give people a different way of thinking about how we might move forward with redevelopment. And I'm very excited to see what the committee has in store. I do have some sense of it from last week's meeting, but now there's a subcommittee working on writing the actual recommendations, and it should be a great next step for our community. And with that, I've talked a lot to open this meeting, so does anybody else have updates and things other exciting things to put on our calendars? Please, Deputy Mayor.
So I want to draw everyone's attention to Saturday, August 5th at 7:30 at the Ossining Elks Lodge, part of an ongoing jazz series that I've been curating now since January. It's not a second Saturday, but it is going to be a nice jazz night. The Corcovado Samba Jazz Trio will be playing. They were the opening act for the Sonny Chirac festival that we had, and very impressive. They had a great single set that night, but they're going to come back and do a full evening. So that'll be at 7:30, Saturday, August 5th at the Elk Lodge, $10 at the door. And hope to see you there. It's going to be a really nice evening of traditional Brazilian jazz music. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, well, I am going to add a couple of more things. Putting on my documentary discussion series hat for a moment next week. Please join us for the screening of the 13th, which is referring to the 13th Amendment of the Constitution. It is the latest in the series within a series, Deconstructing Racism. And as always, it's free. It starts at 6:30 in that wonderful Budars Theater we were referencing earlier. As always, it is free to the public. Following the viewing of the documentary will be a panel discussion. The panelists are excellent. I encourage you to learn more about the program and the panelists at ossiningdocumentaries.org, and I look forward to seeing some of you there. And also, you can mark your calendar for what should be a really fun night. A couple of days after we meet in the library to hear the recommendations from the Downtown Redevelopment Working Committee, you are invited to what's he calling it? Disco night. Disco night at Henry Gordine Park. We've had a bunch of jazz nights there at Henry Gordine Park. Disco night is being put on by a gentleman named Johnny Jimenez, who is a DJ and wanted to be able to organize an event for folks in the community. So it's from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock at Henry Gordine Park. Finally, I will ask Interim Village Manager Paul Fraley. Take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item on the agenda tonight is going to be introduced by Trustee Rika Levin. With us this evening, we have the Downtown Development Fund Council update, along with Andrew Kaplan and John Salzman in the audience, but I believe Rika wanted to do some introductory remarks to talk a little bit about their successes and future endeavors. Trustee Levin?
Thank you. I'm not going to say much because the team is going to get up and do a great presentation. But this is, there were about 5 projects that were approved by the board a number of months ago. 3 of them, I would say, have been very successfully completed. I think the one that people, excuse the pun, see the most are the lights on the trees as we drive through the downtown. And a lot of people were involved in the project. I think Andy and John really were the key players in getting it all done and pretty much on budget as they go through, helped by organizations like the Chamber, who was very involved and will continue to be involved as we look for sponsors for the tree wells and the maintenance of the trees. I think it looks great. It was a great coming out party. We've already mentioned it so many times I don't want to go through all the players that were helpful, but I'm going to let the committee sort of stand up and talk about the next couple of exciting projects on the table.
Would you like to go, would you like to say opening remarks with the lights on and, all right, go right into the presentation?
Sure. Andy Kaplan, John Zeltzman, from the Downtown Committee. Thank you to everybody for having us. And I think for the most part, Rika kind of set it up. We've got a couple of projects. We're excited that we've taken care of a few or knocked a few off the list so far, but we're really excited about the next upcoming one. So that's really about it. We'll get going with the presentation now.
Can you see it? Do you want me to move the chair?
Okay, and again, just to add one thought to before, and just thank you also to Paul and also to Omar Herrera, who helped shepherd these first couple of projects with us, and to everybody here on the board for their support and helping to make things happen on these. So without further ado, we're just going to kind of review the first couple of projects and next steps. Sorry, gotta get used to this. So our overall objectives of the council recommendations are really, there's 2 main ones: promote collaboration, shared responsibility, and shared benefit. That's between the village, property and business owners, residents and patrons of the downtown, and enhance downtown streetscapes to instill pride and invite new businesses that, to want to come here and open shop. So that has sort of been the overarching focus of what we've tried to do with all of our thought process. We started with some small but simple stuff, just building on last year's discount card that we sent out with everybody who ordered train parking passes down at the Ossining train station. They all received a free discount card. That included discount offers from a bunch of local businesses, thanks to the Chamber of Commerce and many of their local businesses that partook in this. And I don't have exact numbers, but I do know that several of them have reported the cards being used. So, and next year, and this was actually a greater number of offers than we had last year, so that was a good thing. And if we continue to do this, which I'm sure we will look to add even more businesses to it. Next, and you see the recommendation numbers on top, by the way. These are not the chronological numbers, by the way. This was recommendation number 3, as you see, green check mark. As you mentioned, we installed some LED lighting on approximately 50 trees downtown. This was one of the earlier ones taken, but you can see the lights most clearly there. I've seen a lot of positive comments, as Rika mentioned, from people around the village. And walked down the street the other day myself, and it was just, I think, our original goal was to not only make the downtown area look a little prettier, but I think it also helps in ancillary benefits in terms of, people feeling more secure, a little bit more vibrant, even in the later stages of the evening. So we thought that was a pretty good success. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the evening that we had the official lighting was a great night that, had a really great turnout from the community. Again, thanks, to the Chamber for helping to put together, a great event. We had music going in 3 different locations. All the businesses stayed open late, and really felt a real sense of pride that you can feel from everybody around the community, particularly the Main Street corridor businesses and owners and retailers, and that's something that we hope, again, we can continue to partner with the Chamber and other entities to keep doing events like that, even throughout the year. Our next project, recommendation number 4, was another one that we completed, repairing the stonework and installing some iron fences and beautifying plantings around the tree wells, so that we really completed it from the base up on these trees, so they really stand out and add a little color and beauty to the streetscape. Here's an example of one, and as you can see, the signage include for Theater Row in this particular case, in which we involved some community sponsorships that are taking ownership of each of these individual tree wells and plantings, and that's been received fairly well. I believe we've sold close to half, if not more, already. And hopefully we'll be selling all of them before the year is out, or the summer's out, I should say. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, John Zeltzman, to pick up the second half.
Okay, so that's what we've done. I'd like to kind of introduce this next section. There's the adage that we all know from way back when, that it takes a village to raise a child. Takes the whole community to raise a child. I'd like to actually say that that adage has a circular theme to it, and that it takes all of the residents to create a community. And this is part of really where we're going with these projects, is to help foster and help instill the sense of community and to involve everyone in building this community. So the pride that it takes to do that is really what we're looking for and what we're asking for from the community. So the next set of recommendations is really to communicate. It's really a communication piece, and we're on these next 2 kind of proposals. We're really thinking a bit out of the box in terms of how we do this, and we can show you a little example of some of that which has inspired us after these slides. But we do need to communicate to property owners, business owners, and tenants, and we also need that communication to be closed-looped with the village itself, with the village authorities, with the village crews, and so forth. That it's a collaborative process. So we need to build awareness of who's responsible for what, and also provide the ability for people to carry out their responsibilities without, I would say, efficiently, effectively, without huge problems. So that's what we want to sort of talk about and communicate in this next recommendation. The follow-on recommendation actually could end up being a lot of fun, which is what we're wanting, because what we're trying to do, and what we've done to date, is spruce up, clean up, and make our add some jewelry to a village. And, but we don't want that jewelry to start tarnishing too rapidly. And there are already, a few signs of tarnish happening, and, it's distressing, but it's also human nature. So what we want to do is try to give people an incentive to change their nature. We believe that we can do that. So we're, as much as we look at the negatives, we also say, it doesn't have to be that way, and we want to focus on the positives. So we want to incentivize as opposed to wag our finger at bad behavior. We want to incentivize good behavior. And that's really where we're coming at with the Your Streets campaign. So and I'll come back in a moment to a little bit about that. So just a financial recap. The fund, when Andy and I started involvement with the fund, it had a starting balance of $460,000 and change. And you see here the expenditures and the projected expenditures, which are really quite on budget. So I guess we kind of nailed it, more or less. So that's makes me feel good about that. And the next projects, we look at another $60,000 of expenditure, which is still going to leave a nice balance in the fund. And that was part of our design from the beginning. We want to do things that are initially to jumpstart, to kind of create some buzz, to create some activity, to start bringing awareness. And then we have some, longer term thoughts, which is why we wanted to maintain still a sizable budget to move forward on that. So, and here is really where I think that the fund and the downtown redevelopment committee start to intersect in our mind. And to me, that's maybe serendipity. Maybe somebody up top was kind of thinking about that from the beginning. I don't know, but we see them coming together and some of the recommendations starting to kind of move onto the same track. So the switching is good. So we're really looking at more of a management system. How do we actually manage the trash and litter and the conditions of the streets and that intersection between people and environment? And then we're also looking at the creation of a development mechanism, which is really what the revitalization committee is talking about, and maybe some of the fund can be used to help jumpstart some of those initiatives. That includes the planning, design, and implementation of a development program. So that's kind of where we're at. Let's look at the excitement of what could be as an approach.
This is related to which project?
So this is related to the campaign, the Your Streets campaign. And this is an organization in London, Hubbub Foundation. It's actually a foundation that has been very active, not only in England, but actually expanding out around the world. So they, like people to use, to be inspired by them. And frankly, Andy and I were quite inspired by them.
Hey, what about me?
Rika was too. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
So you have to pardon the accent. It's a bit foreign.
Oh, the speaker's off. See it?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Oh, I just canceled it. All right, where's the pause button?
We'll avert our eyes.
That wasn't the pause button. Uh-oh, uh-oh. Oh, yeah, right there. Right, no, down, right down. No.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Oh, I see. We could sing.
Please do.
Yeah, we'll come up with a clean street song.
Only if you could do it with the lovely British accent.
What's that?
Oh, there it goes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's off now.
Now it's on.
Yeah, the speaker should be on.
So let's bring this back.
Try it.
The volume.
Okay, now it looks okay.
Maybe the volume is low.
I was gonna say, is the
Yeah,
volume.
yeah,
Where the volume?
yeah, on the next one over.
Oh. Okay.
Want to play it from my laptop and hold the audio up?
Where's the pause button? That's not the pause, is it? No.
No, don't run it through.
Keep it in the center of the screen and click.
Got it? Yeah. Say that 10 more times.
Yeah, you know what?
No, because the sound actually.
You really need the sound.
Want to time it with my phone?
There.
Why don't we just do it on your,
He has a laptop.
we could try to hit the button, we could do them both and that'll sync
it up with their phone.
it'll sync close enough.
The modern technology. and it's
We've
fine.
done that before, actually.
All right.
Yeah, let me just get on, do that.
No, he'll get it on his laptop, so you can do it at the same time. Without the sound, it doesn't have any
The
effect.
Wi-Fi is, public.
Two different ones.
Yep.
Oh, wait.
Got it back to the beginning. And here we go, 3, 2. Nope.
We are looking at new ways to tackle littering behaviour. Engage people in an issue in a way that is positive, fun, and encourages people to look after the streets that they live and work on. Villiers Street is a real melting pot. It's made up of a lot of
watching a
commuters,
Japanese movie.
tourists. There is quite a vibrant night economy. Over 6 months, we've got a range of different installations and competitions running on Villiers Street. The My Street is Your Street poster gallery shows the faces that make up people who live and work on Villiers Street. We've also got a talking bin, which thanks you for depositing your rubbish. We had a flash mob called Message Bin a Bottle, where we celebrating people who took the initiative to put a piece of litter from the floor into the bin. We've also got Gumdrop, who are an organisation who recycle chewing gum. They have key rings, which you can use on the go to put in your chewed gum. They are then collected and can be recycled into lots of products. We have a chew by numbers display where you put your chewed gum on a cross and it builds up a face of a character who is from the area. Hubbub is an environmental charity who's looking at fresh, new, creative ways of communicating different environmental issues.
give people a reason to take care of the place they're in and help them understand the environment that they're in. Litter doesn't have to be boring, it can be fun and interesting, and that's what we're trying to do. Villiers Street is just one street in a massive city. We hope that this is going to be a model that can be replicated, and we will share the results of what is successful from this project. We want this to be a catalyst for greater change on a bigger scale across the country.
Yeah, that's it.
So that's where we think we're going, is something creative, something different, something that will shake people out of their normal way of viewing the world and inspire them to do something wonderful with this village.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I'm sure there's some questions.
Yes. Did you want to comment before we go round robin or anything?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, and thank you for finding, we're looking at the video when I first saw it. It was really cool the first time I saw it, but I do some of this stuff, and you have to look at a lot of examples and do research to come up with that one idea that really sort of speaks to you. And, sure, it's, England, different country, we get a lot of that, but it's just to find a different idea, a cool idea, something that we can replicate within reason. We certainly have that one street, so for us, for the downtown. So I thought it was really great that you guys went through that trouble. I wanted to ask a question, which I didn't want to interrupt. So what's your top 2 learnings from doing the 3 projects? One of which was, a small redo from last year, and then 2 bigger ones that involved, the village. And Paul, thank you. The whole crew was down there that night. As always, they were in the background, not in the foreground, but your crew that helped put everything together too, with the wells, the flowers, the trees. But what were a couple of key learnings that we should take away from this?
I'll let John. Well, I'll just say my part, and then John. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what has struck me the most is not necessarily anything that we've researched or found. What I've learned and what I've appreciated is that there is a lot of joy and excitement when people see the result. People in this village, there is a pride there, and it just needs to be brought out in whatever mechanisms possible. I mean, the night of the tree lighting was, in the 11 years that I've lived here, was one of the most special nights that I've seen in a long time. Just the overall energy, warmth, excitement that everybody had. And like I said, I think a lot of times, even amongst ourselves within the village, there's a lot of that sort of bah humbug kind of mentality or feeling. And it was, to me, it was just it was very satisfying to know that there are a lot of people out there that take pride, that care, that want to see things like this. And that, frankly, some that will even change their habits. And again, this sort of goes back to what we're trying to accomplish with some of these next projects is hopefully getting more and more people on board with that and expressing that viewpoint on a daily basis, so that, it helps to change the culture overall. Maybe not just, and again, we always thought of this not just with downtown in mind, but the entire village, and spread out even further than that. Again, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but as part of, these next projects, again, whatever we do create, or bring, somebody on to come up with creative ideas, whether it's something, very parallel to that particular project or different, but again, in that same creative vein. We want it to be something that is very targeted to downtown, which is what this fund is all about, but something that has legs that goes beyond just even, Main Street and State and Spring and the downtown area. And I'll let John elaborate.
I think there are a couple things that are coming together now. One is that we're demonstrating, and it's not just, you know, these projects that we did, but with First Village moving in, with Good Choice Kitchen moving in, that there are people who are making a commitment to making something happen in the village. And there's a timing base that's happening now that is so important. And I think the excitement that was, I think the lights were sort of the culmination of those three things coming together. And, you know, so that I think that buzz, that excitement is what needs to be captivated and move forward. Because you still get, oh, well, I think somebody should do this. Well, no, maybe not somebody, maybe you should do this. So people who say somebody should do this should just look in the mirror and say, well, maybe that somebody is me, and take the risk, take the leap. So that's one of the things. The other thing is that this project actually came together really fast. And that's because of the village. The village got behind it, Paul got behind it, he got his crew behind it and the staff behind it, and boom, it was done. And that demonstrates that the village can actually get something done, well done, and quickly. So that to me is a big learning curve, because you don't see that very often. And I think, you know, all the village guys and gals who worked on this project should feel proud that they worked on this project, and that they helped to transform the downtown. So that's another takeaway that I got. So I'm bullish on that, and I have lots of more projects that I could, you know, name. And I think, you know, the village would just like be dynamite if we just started moving through them.
Who else has comments and questions for our volunteers here? Yeah, John, please.
You know, just thanks for your commitment and your care and your time, you know, to come up with these things and think it through and all the way through the execution. I have to agree that the night that the lights first were kind of presented to the community was really a special evening, and I certainly really enjoyed it. You know, all of these things make sense. I think it's a great sequence. I think the new sequence, the new two projects that you want to do are really relevant and an extension of all those things. And, you know, keep your thinking caps on, because I'm certainly open to all of the things that you've done so far, and I'm excited to learn about new ideas that you come up with. The video was that's really cool. No, I mean, it just, they're looking at it from a whole different, and John, you really said it earlier, it's really about behavioral change. You know, it's really about people thinking differently about the community that they live in, and what's important, and that everybody is a participant in that. You know, if everybody owns that, then that's a huge change for the community, and everybody else looks at that and says, wow, they really care about this place. And that's just a very powerful statement that everybody's synergizing together on this one thing, but then everybody else looks at that and says, wow, that's cool. So
that change just by nature is going to take time, but it has to be reinforced from here, from this table, because if, you know, as the village demonstrates that it wants to be something better than it is, we have a very aspirational community here, across the board. And I think if the village leadership shows that aspiration itself, then, you know, there's nothing that's going to stop us.
I want to thank you guys for your commitment. I'm literally excited for the next two phases. I believe once you definitely have that education about what people's responsibilities are, and then you actually have you know, your street is my street. Once people take ownership of that's exciting. People will think twice about, hey, you know what, this is my street. Maybe I don't want garbage in front of my door. And I'm just excited about that. I think this is something that can really wrap people can wrap their mind and their hearts around it, about, you know, it's more than just clean streets. We're Ossining. we have expectations. So thank you, and again, I enjoyed the video.
I could say a lot, but I think I'm gonna refer that to a different meeting, maybe an inside meeting with the group itself. I was impressed with all the work that you have done. Definitely, it's definitely a teamwork that is not just this table is what you guys do and what everybody else did in the outside of these doors did to accomplish what you guys have done. So I want to thank you for that. I think there's definitely a lot more work to be done. It's not just those 2 additional projects that you guys have presented here. I think we wanted to have this as the basics to what we want to see, not just the downtown, as you mentioned, Andy, but just the whole village itself, which is the pride of where we live. And that takes a group effort. It's just not you. It's not just this table. It's not just the guys that work for the village. It's pretty much everybody in the village, and even outside the village, that we need to educate. And that's the biggest challenge that I think we have in our hands, is the education portion of how to educate people outside these doors. So, like I said, I have thoughts about that, and I'll leave that out, and we can definitely have a different discussion, because I don't want to be here all night. I don't think you guys want to be here all night either. But I appreciate everything that you guys have done, so thank you so much.
You know, I just want to mention that, John, is the website, or the chamber website, have the post for sponsoring the trees and tree wells?
It hasn't been put up, but it would.
And thank you for coming tonight, by the way.
Hasn't been put up yet, but it'll
But
be
you
put
will.
up very
So
shortly.
the
Yeah.
forms-
We're gonna make that another initiative, is
Okay.
sponsoring of the tree wells.
All right, because that just helps with some of the revenue that will keep that going. Do we, I was just on the website, I don't know where we have it, but it's on there, right? I believe it is. Okay, the forms, because then they're going to link through that. It's on the Parks and Recs? I didn't think about that, I'm sorry.
I can
should have
capture
thought
that
of
and put it on ours then.
Okay, so we just want to get it out there, and then
Yeah.
people can, it could be private, it could be public, whatever.
Individual, yeah, or whatever.
Individuals, not-for-profits, great, so thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's great, what the committee's doing. It's about ownership. This morning, I was walking up and down, and there was some trash in one of the tree wells, and I picked it up. And then I noticed other people started doing it because they saw me doing it. But they think there's a magical person that comes and just cleans the street. And it's us, we have to do it. And I actually found a letter in the trash, and I delivered the trash back to that person's address.
Well, thank you very much. And, this, the tree lighting is one of those projects there have been 2 since I've been mayor, where people across the political spectrum, people who have just visited this community, people who hate village government, people who don't know what village government does. But the first project that everybody loved was the Greenway. And the next project that everybody loves is the tree lighting. People stop me on the street and tell me how excited they are about it. Send emails saying, just thanks so much for doing this. And it's all over Facebook. Everyone's very excited to be able to enjoy our downtown in a really new way. And thank you for spearheading that effort. That's definitely the most visible. The tree wells, I think, are going to be a really lasting one that's got some great longevity for beautification. But your jewelry analogy there was understood. I will say I'm really glad, John, that you had the opportunity to see firsthand the capability of village staff working with Paul and with the DPW crew. They take tremendous pride in their work, and I'm sure they enjoy the opportunity to work on such a high visibility project, since most of the work they do is keeping the village running in less flashy ways. So I'm sure it was appreciated by all. And as well as your comments that there is a lot of pride in our community. And I know that sometimes that is expressed through frustration, because we know that the best of us is not always what is most obvious. And you 2 gentlemen who presented to us tonight are people who have called out when you've said that things should be better, but you didn't just complain. You spent many, many hours and a lot of creativity and have led some tremendous efforts already, and I'm very excited for what's next. I think the gum on the wall is a little gross, but I'll get over that if it's going to work. I don't really chew gum myself, so I can steer clear of the wall. But aside from that, I thought there was a lot of creative, really interesting, fun things, and certainly was memorable. So I'd rather have it on some disgusting wall temporarily than on our streets perpetually. So I can get behind whatever you think might work.
Actually, sorry.
You have a gum on the wall comment?
No, yes, I do, actually. It reminded me to a trip that I
We're
did to
deteriorating.
Seattle. And actually, Seattle has this whole wall
Yep.
in one of the downtown areas. That's specifically for that.
I'm not a germaphobe, but that just was like beyond.
It's the cost of crews cleaning up gum off sidewalks in this
Oh, yeah.
country is astronomical. It has to be done by hand with these little. There's like no equipment for that.
We
it's
have a gumball
astronomical.
machine.
We have a go. Yeah,
Not a fun one. We have a gross one that cleans our sidewalks. Yeah, but anyway. So this fund, and I do want to clarify for people, thank you for putting the budget where it started, a year and a half ago when you guys got onto the committee, and then the cost of the projects, and then where we are today. And I think it's important for people to understand, and I know we say it all the time, so it's repetitive for those of us who have these conversations, but for folks who tune in less regularly, the money in this fund was a result of part of the agreement between the village and Ginsberg Development Companies when we established the legal agreement for Harbor Square. So it's not from property taxes, and
Right.
it is exactly to be used for projects like this, that it's seed money to do great things to help revitalize and improve the downtown. And you touched on this earlier when you said, while we are investing that money in projects specifically for downtown, the point is that the downtown, being the very best it can be, is investing in everything in the community, and it will build out from there, because that's just sort of the high profile area of our community, but it radiates out. I do recall, though, one of our previous meetings when we were talking about budget, that there was going to be some greater expense than had been anticipated. Yep.
I could try to address that if it's okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. Before I do, if it's okay, thank you for the sentiment about the fellas. They did take a lot of pride in it, so thank everybody that mentioned that. I'll tell you that someone who's been here a lot longer than me, who works for DPW, who was working that night, I think classified it as the coolest night he's seen downtown ever. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Measuring tool there. So administratively, when the group first came in front of the board to request the monies for their 2017 efforts, they put together a budget, and like most budgets that are going down a road of something new and different and really not that familiar with like some of the recurring operating budget lines that you see in our budgets, they estimated, and I could tell you that the estimates when totaled, when we completed the work, we came in less than the total expenditure committed. It's just that one exceeded, the one that I presented to you that night exceeded the estimate, but another one came in lower. So we were okay with the monies from that perspective. And one thing that plays into what I started speaking about, which was the how cool they thought it was, and the sense of ownership, was that when we really got into the tree well component, there was definitely a sense of ownership there, and it was it parlayed right into the recreation department and their efforts with the plantings on the sponsorships there, and that's contagious even internally, and you're correct. Folks do like working on things that are a little different and outside the box, that gets that type of flair and recognition, because it's neat to do it. I think based on that, as the Downtown Development Committee decides to do new things and different things, I think existing things has tentacles, and internally we can reach out with that same concept, year by year in our operating budget, so we don't draw from the downtown fund for that, but we can consider it in our operating budget as we go on with things like that. So next year's budget, I think we did the same thing here. I really didn't look deeply into the derivative of those two estimates, but I'm sure we will as it goes forward and those projects start to scope themselves out. And just like anything else, we'll sit with Tom, we'll follow all procurement measures, and everything will be above board and publicized before we execute, and we'll go from there. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Is there an ask for tonight, or is this just to get us really excited?
Approved everything. The budgets were approved.
Yeah.
So this is an update, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's more just an update, and I think the video presentation helped to, again, it may not be exactly that project, but or that kind of work, but I think it's just to sort of get everybody excited about the possibilities of what we can do for these next projects, and not just people here, but again, anybody at home watching and whoever they want to share that. So maybe before we even start these projects, that there's that sense of excitement and pride that starts to take hold.
Thank you. I will say, while I'm thinking of it, Jamie, mention of the Treewell adoption opportunity. Since we did publicly comment that the manager position, we're no longer accepting applicants, so we can officially take that off of the homepage, which gives a little more room to the homepage. Maybe we can put the Treewell adoption up for the next couple months, because I think we want to get those sold by the end of or those sponsorships signed up by the end of the summer. So, thanks. Is that okay? All right. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Our next item on the agenda, we have with us this evening CPI Human Resource Management Company, represented by Michael Grinnell and Kristen Tudman. But prior to them presenting to you, I want to ask Linda McMahon and Michael Duffy, our union president, to introduce them. And while they're coming up here to introduce Mike and Kirsten, I'm going to say a couple of words about this next presentation. One of the things in my interim role that I did early on was sit with the department heads to talk about cost-saving measures. And one of the ones that I know Linda has tried to initiate previously, but it's never been more important than when she sat down with me and asked again to initiate an analysis with regard to our health insurance and some of the costs associated with our present provider, POMCO, was if she had the opportunity to bring in this firm to do a cost comparison with another entity. So what we did was made a connection through the town's contact with NISHIP, and basically got some estimates on what past years would have been should we have had some that coverage in place. And when I sat down with Linda and she showed me how not only would the people that are covered, the employees that are covered, have saved significant money on various items like co-pays and out-of-pocket, but the village would have saved our self-insured monies in excess of $800,000 last year, should we have made that move in 15, based on our expenditures of that year. So unless you don't read the papers or watch the news, health insurance is health insurance. And it's, I'll call it one of the lowest hanging fruits that I saw when I sat down here, and Linda exploited that even more. And that's what she's going to present tonight with Mike Duffy, again followed by reps from the CPI Human Resource Management, who are going to give you a detailed presentation on what they'd like to do for us so we can make a very cohesive and, dare I say, Linda, based on what you taught me, a legal determination of how to proceed with our health insurance. Linda, Mike?
Good evening, Board. I requested to be on the agenda this evening to restate what the village manager has mentioned, to present to you my recommendation to utilize the services of CPI HR to conduct an in-depth cost analysis and benefit comparison between our existing health plan, POMCO, and NISHIP. Michael Grinnell and Kirsten Tudman are here this evening to detail for you their scope of services. If it is the desire of the board to consider an alternate health plan option, without this detailed analysis, the village will be unprepared to facilitate that change during contract negotiations. This analysis, along with the additional support services of CPI HR, can provide the valuable information that cannot be feasible doing in-house. POMCO is not even able to provide the comparison to this depth. And also, I've been in touch with Michael Duffy, the CSEA president, and I'd just like to tell you, he can tell you his comments about our discussions.
Thank you, Mayor, Board. For being here for 30 years, I have the most experience in this room when it comes to insurance with this Village of Ossining. And after many times sitting in Linda's office back and forth with stuff, fully understand over the years where it's taken us and what the new administration is doing and so on and so forth. But we fully back this. We really do, and it's definitely going to be the future for us. Self-insurance is just put us way over where we're supposed to be. So, like Linda said, with some of the some of the numbers there, it's on what Paul said, it's really a no-brainer. So, I actually look forward to doing a lot of work with these people and doing this whole analysis. I look forward to it. So, all right.
Obviously, the PBA would also need to be a part of this, and we were unable to reach out to them at this juncture. At this point, I'd like to invite Mike and Kirsten up to the podium.
And while they're coming up, since Linda interjected that would require reopening of the contract, but we believe that shouldn't be issue based on some of the preliminary conversations we have had during the contract about their existing coverage and what they just got subjected to with their contributions in the most recent contract. So we don't deem that to be an issue.
You think they may be somewhat amenable, given Mike Duffy's very open mindset? Yes, endorsement, that would be the correct word.
Yeah, I just have to say that you set the bar pretty high here. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Sure.
So.
Okay, what we just handed out to you, and one of the things that Linda and I had talked about, and I'm Mike Grinnell, and this is Kirsten. One of the things that Linda and I first started the discussion, and then when I was talking with Mike earlier before this meeting, if you look purely financial, and that makes the attraction, right, of looking at dollars potentially being saved. However, from somebody who works for you, there's a lot of other variables, and those are the variables that we want to dig and make sure that we understand so that your employees, should a change be made in the future, that they're not going to be hurt. So when we look at point one, we're going to really look at the network. Who do your employees see, right? Who is the hospitals that they go to? Who are the physicians that they go to? How does it compare to NISHIP, and how does it compare to POMCO's plan? So we'll know exactly and be able to educate if there should be any changes should you move down the path to make a switch.
And with those reports that we get from POMCO, they won't have any individual names, so nobody has to worry about any of that. They'll just have the number of visits, what doctor somebody went to or was used by your group, and how many times. So we'll look at that across the board, the zip codes that your doctors are going to.
And one of the other concerns is, from your retiree base, right? Currently, how POMCO does it and how NISHIP does it, they use the Medicare network nationally for those that are outside of New York State. So we would, again, there would be no change from a network perspective, but for those early retirees, we want to understand where they live. We want to understand what the network impact would be for them should a change be made, so that you're aware of that in your decision tree. And then looking at the pharmacy benefits and the core benefits, right? doing a spreadsheet and working with the unions on an educational basis. This is your current plan. This is how NISHIP would look, and understanding where the differences lie in a copay structure. And looking at our claim data and understanding how many did we actually use of those types of services in the past based on our history. So taking that data makes it a lot easier to move forward should a change be made, understanding what you did before. And then really, should we move down this path, and we're not saying that it is the path that we're moving, I think the data will lead us to a right decision for the village. And I do think that while the monies are initially there from a savings perspective, I think the challenge with you currently in your POMCO situation is you're a smaller group in a self-funded plan where you have some good years and you have some bad years, and then the rates go up. Where NISHIP, the way that the premiums are established there is it's $1 million or million life pool of people, and it's assessed across the pool. They only have 2 plan designs. So the village would not be assessed for claims used by your own employees. It would be spread out amongst the pool of
Back
people.
up and tell them what NISHIP stands for.
NISHIP is the New York State Health Insurance Plan. And I think one of the good sides, as we talked about it in the meeting, one of the good sides of it, the state employees, the CSEA unions, basically control the plan design. It's not, we kind of lose the functionality of local municipalities being able to change the plan design. It's driven by a state basis, but I will tell you, they haven't tweaked a lot of the copays. I think the last change they made was about 7 years ago. We have heard that in our our governor's discussion that there were promises made of some changes in the health plan, but we have not seen them. They're going to be rolling out for 2018. So during this process, we'll be able to see what those are and be able to relate it back to our plan before any potential implementation of a change if it were decided to go forward. So.
And we'll also do and give you the list of other municipalities that have NISHIP in your area and all of that. So that'll be part of our analysis too, because the majority of municipalities in this area have NISHIP for their health coverage.
And I think the other point she wanted me to drive, NISHIP is made up of 5 units. United Healthcare is the medical network for it. Empire Blue Cross is the national hospital network for the plan. You have Caremark, that is the pharmaceutical manager. And then you have mental health, which is Beacon, which is the network. So, and that's really a GHI network. So there's 5 plans that have come together to make one benefit.
The members do only carry one card, so that's nice. I don't think there's 5 different cards for each section. But with this analysis and the scope of services, we'll go through, and again, like Mike said, not only just look at costs, but the carriers, the outcomes, those things. If you decide to move, we will also do your employee education. So that's included because we feel strongly that more importantly than moving coverage is making sure that your employees understand the coverage. So we will do the bottom 4 things, have meetings here for active employees, put together packets for new people, make sure that the retirees understand the plan, have a retiree meeting here, and make sure that out-of-state people get packets and understand the coverage differences if you were to make a change. Any questions?
Yep.
No, I have not to you the specific questions, but I think to this whole thing, because I was trying to go back to about 1.5 years, 2 years ago when we actually looked into this. When this was brought up to us, I remember, I think I have a recollection, maybe John and Victoria can help me out on this, because we looked into changing the plan at that time, and then POMCO came back and saved us about almost $500,000, or maybe even more than that, I believe. There was the numbers, there were some variables in there. So refresh my memory in that a little bit.
If I recall, I think you're referring to the premium equivalent passes.
Yes, it was the
Yes.
third pass.
Yeah.
Right. And we get those, 3 times, and that's actually based on what the medical budget is that is going to facilitate the health insurance coverage. So those premiums are based on experience. So, I mean, I don't know why they reduced it by 500,000.
I think maybe Tom can help out.
I mean,
I'm not
we're
sure
at
if you
their
remember,
mercy as
but
to how.
I remember I remember it was a big part of that because we were going through the budget part, and they came down with a big difference on that because we were looking into change, and my recollection was, and again, I'm going to go to the seniors board members here, I guess, a little bit, because we said we were self-insured, and there were some questions in regards to why we should switch or we should not switch.
Oh, absolutely. I
know-
do recall that. And like, I don't know what causes POMCO to fluctuate with their premium equivalents. I don't know. We ask them to run a pass. And sometimes what happens is there is a surge within a particular quarter where a lot of claims come to fruition. So that's going to affect that pass. And then it's possible that the next quarter, fortunately, everyone's healthy and they don't get as many claims. So the premium equivalent could possibly go down. And that's why when we get multiple passes, we kind of look at, where the whole range is. And then with conferences with the treasurer of the board and the manager, we kind of decide what are we comfortable with? Do we want to over budget on, take our chances? Because it's really just a budgeting facility. It has nothing to do with
Yeah,
how much it costs.
what she said there last is what we have to key in on, and maybe what you could expand on, Linda, is the chart that I just gave you back. The pass is just a pass. It's used to create a budget. But what we pay is what we pay. And I think that even using 2016 again, we
Right.
had a pass and we had a budget, but what we ended up paying exceeded our budgetary number by whatever number you want
Right.
to read to me now.
And what I did do is I made an analysis, very superficial, based on just individual and family coverage. And there are several numbers. We have the amount budgeted, which is based on the premium equivalents. Then we have actual dollars spent, which doesn't necessarily jive with what's budgeted. And then also included in that is our stop-loss payments. So after all was said and done, we had, you wanted me to use 2016, for instance? Okay. The budget that we had based on our premium equivalents for POMCO for 2016 was $5,521,080. The actual cost was $6,013,627. So although we had a pass that estimated our experience to be at the 5 million mark, in reality it was the 6 million. And based on the premiums that the village would have paid, conservatively speaking, because they do have a tiered system, and I didn't have the data to actually do specifics where retirees are concerned, because they have a tiered system where either one is primary Medicare or both are primary Medicare, so there's several tiers to that. I just went single and individual, so it's actually greater savings than what's here. The yearly night ship cost was $5,208,000, and that would have been budgeted at the time the budget was passed, and that's what we would have ended up with in December 31st. And that would have been a difference of $804,000.
So, and I guess this is more like a bigger question, not just for the health insurance, but we are a self-insured village.
Right.
What does this mean for us if we go to a particular plan in
It-
regards to the insurance itself?
Well,
'Cause
that's
do
why
get-
we need
do
the-
claims like, like full claims that someone tripped or whatever. What does that mean
That's
for
different
us?
than the health insurance. That's your
This is strictly,
liability.
this is, yeah.
This is,
That's
okay,
like-
so that has nothing to
This
do
is
with one
employee
another. Okay.
benefits. The other
All
one
right.
is,
People can still trip and fall.
is liability, yeah.
Still have to figure that out.
I just want to make sure that we're not working, in
They're
two
not
different,
related.
they're not related to
No.
each other.
And I also want to also point out that CPI-HR has absolutely no affiliation with any insurance company whatsoever. They are an independent entity. So they have no skin in the game as to what way we go in all of this.
Thank you, Linda.
So that was going to be my question, to sort of understand who you all are, because that was not actually a part of your presentation. So do we do other work with you guys? You do, I mean, I just went on your website, you don't have your
Yeah.
site on here, so I'm
That's,
assuming
I'm
that-
sorry, I didn't mention that, actually, CPIHR assists us with our Affordable Care Act assistance.
Okay.
We do contract with them previously to get us through all of the extenuating and excruciating reporting that's involved with 1095s and just payroll and deciding who needs to be offered insurance. I mean, it's a very cumbersome process. And they have been a wonderful support system for us. And I think it also helps the finance office. I think Tom could speak to that because it involves a lot of his staff having to provide weekly, if not monthly, reports, because that all has to be reported to make sure we are in compliance. And both are always very accessible if there's any questions, and they actually point out to us if in some cases there could be employees that borderline where they may be mandated to be offered insurance because of hours that are exceeding. So we have a watchful eye to make sure that the village does not get fined and the penalties are steep.
Right, so this doesn't require bidding because this is a retained
Professional
service.
service.
It's a professional service, and at the bottom of what you were handed out is the fee associated
Yeah, I
with this
saw that
6-month
already. That's
effort.
why I was just gonna ask who everybody was here. So now you're telling me that positive experience, you're happy with the service. I have no basis for comparison whether 13,000 is a good price, bad price, or medium price. But I'm going to assume that you did your due diligence and to work with us. It's sort of interesting that about the education, because I worked in an insurance company and I still don't get all of this. So I think that part is super important because it's become, I think, part of the a big chunk of change. It used to be a nothing 20 years ago. It's now a big chunk of change of all of our salaries and why we work. And the increase has probably been the largest single increase of anything in our structure and our pay and salary. So that seems to me a big part of what these guys do. And okay, and you're the two people. You're not just presenting your company,
Nope.
but you're the actual.
Yep. No, it would
Okay.
be Mike and I working here. Where our office is in Syracuse. We have people behind the scenes working on like those reports that Dale sends us and everything on that. Our headquarters is in Ohio, but we have most 95% of our clients are here in this county.
In Westchester County.
And we can give you a list of, and it's because we do a lot of speaking at GFOA, Government Finance, and also NASBO. So we work with a lot of municipalities and a lot of school districts. And we have both separately been in the insurance industry over 26
years.
Probably. Well, me less than him because I'm younger, but.
By 2 months, by the way.
It's a nice 2 months. But, so we've worked, before the Affordable Care Act, we worked a lot with both fully and self-insured companies. So we do work with self-insured companies and read through their data on a quarterly basis. We do educational meetings on, why are your ER claims so high? Why shouldn't they be lower? We do a lot of Affordable Care Act because we found in municipalities and school districts, they just don't have the staff to do it.
Right.
So that's been a huge issue over the last 4 years.
Yeah, and from a self-funding perspective, I think, what Linda's challenge is that you can budget $1, right? And you can assume, and like she said, when you get into a certain quarter, all of a sudden an employee who was well last quarter is now a $150,000 claim, and you're paying that. And again, from a pure financial perspective, that's why NISHIP looks attractive. But I do want to go through this process because in that issue, you would not be charged that claim if you were enrolled in NISHIP. So from a budgeting perspective, it absolutely is an advantage.
And the difference is, even though NISHIP is a self-funded plan, it's so huge that they just absorb all those claims, so that.
And reassess when they
Right.
write. They reassess every January based on that pool of
Their
people.
highest has been
7.5.
7% increase has been their average.
And then just also with respect to how this all plays into the contract negotiations, because I think even just with the increase in the employee contributions, there is some interest in exploring another alternative perhaps. Nobody's saying that we have to do this, but I think it would make everyone feel better saying that, okay, we've done the best we can and this is the most cost-effective for the services and the providers that we have. So I think it's important to be prepared. And also I think it's virtually impossible to do a thorough and complete analysis without the assistance of an outside company having the ability and the staff to do it. Because again, if we miss something, that's a liability to the village going forward under Taylor law. So I'm just, it becomes an improper practice, quite frankly. If there's not the same exact insurance, we need to know what those differences are, if any, and those are part of negotiations. So it's a long process. That's why we're sort of starting it a little bit on the earlier side so that we can have the information and, okay, well, we did it and we're comfortable with where we are, end of story. But I think it's, I know in the past you've wanted me to do comparisons, and I think I came back to you previously saying that there is no private insurance company that would even speak with us. They don't even have the ability to compare to our POMCO insurance. So that's why I started to look a little further into NISHIP, and in my conversations with Michael and Kristen, they have said they've done this for other municipalities and it's worked well. And just aside from their services they provide, it's Michael and Kirsten that I speak with constantly. It is not the people behind the scenes. They are very available to us, and it's a comfort level because we are paying for their professional knowledge and all of this, and that's what we get. So I will say that we're very pleased with what they've done for us as far as ACA. So just that's sort of a background as to why we're even presenting it now, only because without the right information, it's not the right way to proceed into negotiations even. Okay, thank you.
Oh, I think we have a couple more questions, though. Deputy Mayor Codman?
Yeah, it seems to me the genesis of the relationship is really around the ACA reporting, because I can recall when you kind of came to us and said, we got all this stuff we have all these deadlines, and as you indicated, the reporting requirements for ACA are so onerous that and we had some other challenges around pulling data and all the other stuff together that I think that they really kind of got us out of a bind, as I recall. I mean, there was some deadlines and things we had, and you had come to us and said, really, we can't, we're overwhelmed, there's no way we're going to make this, and
That's
we have
right.
a firm that's going to be able to do this. So I think that, now how long have they been doing the ACA reporting for us? Is that the last 4 years, ever since ACA?
Ever since we required it
Right.
to do
So
it.
so basically, you've been with us, with that ACA reporting for as long
From the
as
inception.
ACA came into legislation and into being. So I certainly remember remember that, and just remembering that no hitches, no issues. We didn't get audited. We didn't have any challenges with the federal government. Thanks very much for that. Appreciate it.
And also, if you may recall, one of the major selling features of using their services, that if we were audited, they would be standing right alongside of me
Right.
pulling the files. so-
Exactly, so we would have
Yes.
support. So that's obviously a great benefit. I'm just sort of going back to Trustee Casada's recollections of, when we talked about POMCO and maybe looking at alternatives. And my recollection of those conversations really had to do with the delivery of the service that POMCO had provided, a lot of the personalized type of ways in which you would be able to call them, and you'd really be able to talk directly to the person that was processing these things, making the decisions about how claims were being dealt with. And my feeling was it was a combination of the savings that they were going to provide to us, but in addition, they had provided very good customer service, and you particularly were very comfortable with the way that they had taken care of us. And that gave.
Oh,
that-
absolutely.
They
And like I
gave
said,
you-
this-
They gave you a comfort level, but I just remember that being high on the
Yep.
list.
Right,
And I
and-
think that part of the bigger conversation really is that, when you are self-insured and you have a relationship like you have with Apomco, where it's very close and they're very customer service related, you're really much more in control of that day-to-day process of the claims and all that other work. And if there are little issues that come up, those things can be smoothed over. The larger questions seem to be, well, gee, if we go with a larger organization that has a larger population, that has, those personalized services, that ability to get access to individuals who can solve problems could potentially be diminished. And to me, that was the kicker, was, yeah, well, we're going to save, $500 is no small amount of money. I mean, you talked about 2016, okay, we budgeted 5, it cost us 6. I'd be interested to know, how much stop-loss insurance claims, how much we got back for stop-loss. Did that include?
Yes,
was that
it did.
included? So even with the stop-loss insurance, we still paid the $6 million and change,
Yes,
as
we did.
opposed to the $5 million that we budgeted.
Yes.
Okay, so that's obviously something to think about, because obviously if we didn't have the stop-loss insurance, it sounded like we would have paid a lot more. So, but that's all rolled into, this formula that we have to sustain ourselves as a self-insured.
Right. I don't think anyone is saying they're dissatisfied with POMCO by any means. And
No, I think I was just sort of going back and saying that was part of the decision.
it was the personalized
Some
service.
of the elements that pushed us to say we're going to stay with who we have.
Right.
And that's where we are. But I mean, I certainly look forward to this analysis. I look forward to understanding the experiences that other POMCO NISHIP members have, to understand, how they feel about the services that they get. Certainly, all the names of the providers that you named, certainly United Healthcare and a lot of these others, those are top flight organizations that provide excellent service. I mean, my own corporate insurance is through United Healthcare and Caremark and some of these others, so I have a personal experience with them in terms of dealing with all that stuff. So, I mean, I look forward to the comparison, and I look forward to the analysis to see, which way we want to go. It could be an interesting analysis. So, thank you for the presentation. I'm in support of this. I feel, I mean, it's for a year, but I'm wondering if, shouldn't we really be kind of talking about this in less than a year? If I mean, I know we've contracted you for a year for this dollar amount, but it seems like we need to kind of get some historical information in the door to figure out,
Yeah,
if we are going to make
definitely-
I mean, do you have a timeline for when we would get to a decision point about making a change in relationship to the CSEA negotiations and all that other stuff? Because we've got some parallel tracks now, right?
Right, and all of that, we would be working with Linda and setting up a timeline. We'd put it a year, just figuring we're going to go through the analysis, which would be the shorter time, but maybe the actual enrollments of people or the education of people would be outside of that. So it's till the project's done. I mean, if it rolls into another year of education meetings and that, then we'll have another discussion, but I don't foresee it lasting.
Yeah, and part of our role, as it's outlined there, would be to, within that time, to have meetings with the unions that have upcoming negotiations, to share with them this analysis, right, and talk of the pros and cons of some of those points of the coverage levels. And that's what we had talked about in the meeting, is really looking at how do those things look together, as well as what would it mean, because there can be a lot of discussion out there without actually looking at facts. And it's been my experience that when you can sit down at the table and share side by side true facts with two parties that are having discussions about any particular benefit, if you have facts in front of them, they're better to come to terms.
Well, yeah, and I would expect if, through the analysis, I would expect both NISHIP and POMCO to want to come in front of us. I mean, if we're really opening this up, they're going to come and bring their dog and pony show in here and talk about why they're good, and not that they're going to disrespect the competitor, but they're going to want to try to talk about their advantages and the things that they bring to the table that are better than the competitor. So that'll be an interesting.
The other
exercise.
reason for the timeliness of it as well is that if and when we decide to make the transition to night shift, it's at least a 6-month process. So there's a lot of work involved in making the transition. And again, it was just to, again, do due diligence to know that what we're agreeing to pay for is the best we can do.
I would, I mean, I think the ask is for the money, right?
Right,
I mean,
there are-
I think this is money well spent, so
Right.
I don't really have any objection to spend the 13,000 to engage
It
them.
can be absorbed into the medical cost when I spoke with Tom earlier. Correct?
Really?
Well, it's not like we have to go into, it could be within the
not
the
a-
906,
it's a routine.
9060 budget.
It's a
Existing
budget
operating
item.
budget for this year.
I didn't even realize we were being asked for something. I thought it was a sort of educational and
Let's
update.
just-
What are we being asked to do?
We're being asked to, they're gonna submit a formal contract.
Okay.
Stuart's gonna review it, and if that all happens before the next legislative session, there'll be a resolution for an award of $13,000 contract for professional services for CPI HR. And I just want to reiterate, because you said it, but for the public, this is an analysis.
Right.
You guys are not determining to go to night shift tonight or even
Oh, yeah.
next week.
Oh, yeah.
This is a true analysis, and we might find that at the end of the analysis that, you know what, it's not as glaring as we really thought, and that 2016 was an outlier, and maybe you want to, if it is turns out to be cheaper, maybe it's almost incidental, and you still want to pay that incidental for that customer service that you referenced. So, I mean, this is strictly an analysis from a unaffiliated third party. That's what we're asking for next week.
I just, you do a regression, you're looking 1 year back, so I would have thought you'd look like at a wider time frame, like a regression analysis for like 3 years, not a 1 year. Because to Paul's point, a 1 year could be an aberration. A 3 year has at least a better shot of, 5 years would be even better, but it's really a...
From a claim perspective, okay, we're really not looking from a claim perspective, which kind of gets you the highs and lows. But from a network perspective, I actually look at, I'll ask them for the last 3 years, the top 500 providers, not only in numbers of services provided, but also the number of dollars spent, right? So we're looking at the high dollar facilities that our employees are using, and then we're looking at the incidental. Who's the most common, right? And making sure, are they in network or out of network on the other two. But yes, good point.
Trustee Bazemore, did you have questions or comments? Well, then I'll just, if there's no further comments, questions, I'll wrap up with a couple of observations. And you guys covered a lot of questions that were very helpful to me. I learned a lot tonight. Thank you very much, Linda, for bringing this forward. And to Manny's point when he raised sort of the look back and what was that conversation we had in 2015? And Rika was just on the board. She came on just in time for this conversation, which because the third pass that POMCO did, as I recall, which brought us down to what ultimately was under budgeting. Was it like $5 or $5.5 million that we budgeted, but we ended up paying $6 million. And so obviously one of the considerations that'll be in the analysis that's a benefit for us from a budgeting perspective is the predictability. We'll know what we're going to pay next year. We won't be $500,000 or $1 million off. Thankfully, we obviously found other places where we were able to conserve in the 2016 budget, but that's really not an ideal way to move forward if there might be a better alternative that meets our needs from a healthcare perspective. And thank you very much for bringing it to Paul, and for Paul, for you to support this effort to really do a much more thorough analysis, so we know if we're going to make a major change like this, which impacts the health of everyone who works for this village, that we really know what we're potentially considering. Because I know there was an effort to do sort of a cursory in-house analysis of options for us to consider, and there were some numbers that made it seem appealing, but we didn't have nearly the what it sounds like we'll be able to get from this relationship. And so I'm grateful that though we went way over budget, and we spent more than we would have if we'd been with NISHIP that year, which doesn't make me feel great. I'm glad that we didn't jump into something only half informed, because if you make a decision to make any changes, it sounds like we'll know what we're talking about here. I do want to just clarify you made the point that it takes 6 months. If we decide to change to NISHIP, it would take 6 months to make that transition. Is there a particular time of year? Because I assume we'd want to know as we go into either this year's budget season or next year's budget season, and what would be the budget season when we would know when we could, the soonest we could possibly make a change? And
Yes.
is there a time of year? Do you have to do it January 1 and July 1?
No, no, I wasn't, I can definitely get confirmation again, but my contact that I spoke with initially a few months ago just said that there was a pile of applications, basically, and agreements and resolutions and all of that that need to be passed as part of the agreement to participate with NISHIP. And the woman that I spoke with did say that it would take 6 months from the time the board passes the resolution telling us that you want to be with NISHIP. There was no specific date in that that was told to me, but I will double check that. And I don't think, because all the municipalities, as you know, have different budget cycles, so I don't think they are that strict about demanding it be a January 1st or a June 1st.
Kirsten's shaking her head. No, she concurs.
The challenge becomes, because NISHIP does set their rates every January 1st. Okay, so your timing should be the October timeframe, right? So that you get that full 12 months, or if not, we'll help you get to a number of what we've been hearing from them. We have a lot of contacts with NISHIP too, so that we can help you better budget, if that made sense, right? So, because the analysis is on a calendar month basis, as she's looking at the potential savings, right? So if you switched into June, you'd get 6 months of one rate from NISHIP, and you get a new rate January 1. So you want to understand what that 6 months is going to be. Right, exactly. And that would be our role, to help you understand what that is.
And Mike Duffy, it's the end of 2018. That's when your current CSEA contract expires. Am I correct on that? Okay. And the last, the PBA contract, it was like 5 years, but it was 2.5 years in the past. And what is it, 2019 it expires?
2019.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Linda. Okay. So it wouldn't make sense for us to be enabling this before the end of 2018, but we may want to know, if we wanted to switch to NISHIP, we would probably want to know that at the time that we're sitting down at a table with you. Correct? Is that what I'm understanding? I'm trying to understand what to expect. Nothing's going to be in the 2017 budget, is what it looks like to me, even if we say we're going with NISHIP.
Does make things easier at a table, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anything else? Any other clarifications or final points on this?
No, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you
very
very
much.
Thank you.
Linda, Mike, Kirsten, thank you very much.
We're going to put this on for resolution then, and
Again, if
the contract
the
is
contract's reviewed and everything
I
is,
think we need to,
Yes, if Stuart needs to look at the contract, but if
Yeah,
it's there, I
yeah,
think
subject
the
to
sense
his
of the board is certainly that we are supportive of
Fine.
moving forward with this analysis. I've
Great.
heard nothing to the contrary.
thank you.
All right, so,
The last item on the, yeah, it is the last item. The last item on the agenda is an awning permit application that's going to be presented on behalf of the building department by Corporation Counsel Kahan.
Oh, okay.
you've been quiet tonight. It's not a Stuart show
early.
tonight.
This is, Joe and I have discussed this one. This is an awning that is already up, and the reason we haven't been provided with swatches and colors is all they did was change the name. It is in fact the same color, same design, it's already up. Just the restaurant has gone under a new name, so otherwise everything is in order, and I would just propose to get a resolution for next week that, we issue them the permit based on that, because there is no change. As we have with other awning permits, it's not within the HADD, so we don't have to worry about any HPC requirements or anything like that. I have the application here. Thank you, sir. It is, and the description of signage is changed lettering on existing sign. The work, in fact, had already been completed by the owners and was, in fact, taken care of. And I have, if anyone wants, we can pass it around. That's what it essentially looks like.
So what are we approving?
We're-
Retroactively?
Well, I guess,
Not so much a change of name, right? You're saying the awning was there.
I think it's a different restaurant.
Yeah, but if
Right,
the,
right.
was there.
but,
So
Fabric
what
but
they
the
changed,
structure and the
Yes.
everything was there.
everything was
The
there.
lettering,
The lettering that
Painted
appears
on.
on the awning has changed. So,
It was Peruvian.
it was
It's
Peruvian
Peru-
before. It's
Peruvian,
just
it's a different
it's
part of
actually
Peru.
not owned by Peruvians.
Why do we have to approve this stuff, seriously?
I know the awning approval thing is like a weird thing. I'm not even sure this
why
is
do we
actually
have
in the
to
right
do-
of way, because this is the restaurant that's next to the library, and it's like way off
Right,
the
all
sidewalk.
the way in the back,
So
yeah.
this,
What was
It was a restaurant.
which restaurant was it before?
Downtown.
It was another Peruvian restaurant, the same location.
yes,
And it's totally different owners or just different
Tempo,
name?
El
Tempo,
Tempo,
El
El Tempo,
Tempo, El
yeah,
Tempo.
Different owners.
really good
So they put it-
ceviche.
I just don't understand why we need to approve all this stuff. But
Because the way our code is written, awning permits require DOT
Because
approval.
most awnings are in the right of way,
This one is
which
clearly
is
not.
our purview. I don't actually think this one is, and the work was already done. So do we have to vote on something? Because I don't really like voting on something that they did without permission.
Choice unless we change the,
No, she's not saying that.
I'm not
She's
sure that,
saying-
do we actually need to because it's not in our right of way? Is it in our right of way? And are we voting on it tonight, or are you asking to put it on for next week?
I'm asking to put it on for next week. It's not,
All right.
I'm not doing it as.
So then
just-
for
just
next
as-
week, I would like to know, is it actually in our right of way? If it's not in our right of way, I don't want to vote on it because I don't like voting on something to approve something that's already done. So I'd rather not if I don't have to.
Understood. Let me report
if we
back to you.
have to, let's not take more than 3 minutes to do it next week, so.
It
I
will-
just, I
it'll
can't
take-
believe we have to sit here and do this.
It'll take less than that.
There was the resolution for a letter of support for the
Indian
grant
Brook Croton Gorge,
application.
which you
Yes.
sent around to
Yes.
everybody,
Right.
correct.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. This was Director of Planning, Lynn Brooks Avni had sent around. It was an email from the town of Cortland. They're looking, with regard to the Indian Brook Croton Gorge, they have a resolution which they have prepared on behalf of the town of Cortland. They would like a similar resolution approved by this village with regard to it. I've looked at the resolution and just, we could certainly adopt it just for the village of Ossining. It seems fine. Looks like the town of Cortland has it on for their meeting for July the 18th. So we can certainly put it on for next week's meeting. Does not appear to be any problem. Lynn seemed to think that this was fine, and the resolution itself in format seems fine.
Did everybody get a chance to look at it? Are you comfortable with this? Are you interested in?
I raised my hand on the email, so.
Yes, you did. Okay. And this is a group that this effort is being put forward by an ongoing group that is focused on the whole watershed area of the Croton watershed, which Indian Brook is a part of, which is why we're particularly a part of this group. Correct? I have not attended the meetings, but I know Lynn has and Andy has. But right, it's part of the watershed, though, right? No? All right. Forgive my ignorance. I guess I need to attend the meetings if I'm going to reference it, but I'm pleased that others are spearheading this and pleased that we can benefit from it. And Lynn is the one who asked us to do this, so thank you, Lynn. All right.
And last, and I circulated earlier this week some legislation from New Rochelle regarding honorary street names.
Oh, okay.
If you remember. And I just sent it to you folks to see. It's amazing what you find in files when you start going through them. But I know that we did receive a letter from, I think, Jerry Smith regarding wanting, I think, a park renamed. And New Rochelle has a specific ordinance with regard to secondary honorary names for streets, which could also be, extended to parks as well, because it would be an honorary name. It wouldn't be changing the formal name of the park. And they have their own requirements in there. For a street, it's 70% of the number of owners of the real property need to sign a petition. That person, the person or not-for-profit for whom the street or portion is being named has to have been in the locality for at least 5 continuous years, and should actually have some connection to that street. That's preferable. And then in New Rochelle, that application then goes to their Historical and Landmark Review Board. it may be a question as to whether we want this, something to go to the HPC to sort of opine on it as to the historical significance of the particular individual and their relationship to this particular street or this particular park. But I know that there was some question as to the ability to have some ordinance which has a more formalized structure for doing honorary names. And there is, as I say, at least one municipality that does it. That's why I wanted to just circulate it so you folks could see it. And yes, there have been some comments, and it's out there. And given that we've had that request from one individual, this at least provides a certain basis for us to look at in terms of wanting, if we wanted to go that route.
Thank you. I'm glad you found that. This is just the latest request. We've had a variety of requests, and we don't have any formal system for how to address them. Some of them have come to fruition, some of them have just sort of not. In this case, because it's park-related, Rika, you had a comment about
the Park and Recs does get requests. They're sitting on 2 right now. You know, a bench, a tree, I think there's a baseball field somebody won, and they've been going through this whole issue also of, so what's the process? Who actually makes decisions? What qualifies you to get a bench versus a rock versus, and who then takes care of it? They had, I guess, water fountain somewhere, and then the water fountain needed to be fixed. So, you know, and apparently in other parks, in other parts of the country, if you ask that something be dedicated in one's name, somebody has to pay for it, and it's not the taxpayers. So if you want a bench, and you're, you know, I'm going to make up ABC not-for-profit. ABC not-for-profit has to raise the money to pay for that bench and maintain it. So there are different pieces of it. I have not personally done the research. I'm a liaison to the committee, but they were, I'm not going to say struggling. They actually thought maybe the high school that has projects, they submitted actually something about finding what's in the parks right now, because there are a lot of things that are already named, but people, there doesn't seem to be a log. Apparently people sort of know. You know, and there are plantings and all that, but it turns out there is no, that anyone knows of, and I don't think Marianne has it, that has some sort of document says in each of the parks, you know, this was named for this reason. So they actually asked the high school as one of the, is it called a capstone? A college calls it a capstone. But they didn't accept the project. Not the school, the kids get to choose the projects they work on. This was not one that was chosen, and they thought of it as a history project, because a lot of it is related to people of history, which is why people want to name something after them. So they thought it was a good history, but the kids get to choose it. So I'm just saying that while we have one sitting with us, it does come up, and the truth is people would just like to have some direction. So I did write to you to say I'd like to at least have the Parks and Rec, even if we decide how it should be done or where it should sit, we should at least inform them so they can also. I just want to point out that when the conversation went this way, there's streets and there's parks. You know, a bench in a park, you know, somebody wants a baseball field right now named after someone. So there was a whole discussion, well, we don't want to do a baseball field. They didn't even play baseball, but maybe a bench. And then you get into a conversation of, you know, street signs are easier. It's a street sign, and, you know, so when it comes to the parks, it actually starts being like a size thing. Like, do you do a whole park name after someone, and is it forever? Is it into perpetuity, or is it limited the way not-for-profits do? Like, you know, Lincoln Center doesn't sell buildings into perpetuity. They're 10-year contracts. You know, when Dallas Tully Hall was bought out by, I guess, somebody else, those names are not into perpetuity. They used to be. Same thing with universities now. So, I mean, honestly, became a half-hour. I know I don't want to make this a half-hour conversation because it seems like such a simple thing. Can we just name this plot of land after a really wonderful human being who's lived here X number of years and did so much? But it turns out that it's a little bit more of a discussion. I'm not sure it's historic, like that it should go to that organization. I don't know where else it should go, but it's parks and it's streets. It's those two entities, in my opinion, and they're not exactly the same.
I think you're right, they're not the same.
Yeah.
But the difference also is if it's a bench, there's one thing if the person's putting in a bench versus if there's simply a bench there and they just want to put a name on a bench. That's not a maintenance situation because that's still the park's bench.
Agree.
If they're actually putting in a piece of equipment, then you have a different situation. Streets a lot obviously easier. You just put up a sign and they have a particular area and you just name it for that area. The New Rochelle does not have a a time frame with regard to streets.
Right.
In other words, they just name it, that's basically what it is.
Yes, but naming a whole park or a whole baseball field actually does seem to me very much like a, really, like, how do you do that?
Well, again, you know.
So I
if-
think
if-
it's
if they-
worthwhile
if-
looking into.
You know, this provides a template for
Yeah.
some way to look at it. And again, because the requests come in, and how it has to be considered, doesn't have to go through an HPC or something, like, go through different ways to look
Yeah.
at it. But, I mean, in the New Rochelle, at least what it is, they want to make sure that whoever you're naming it after, or whatever you're naming it
Well, I
after,
like
has a
that part a
connection
lot.
to the location. So you just don't sort of like, you know, pick and choose, that kind
Well,
of thing.
I really I read it. I thought it's really good. I just think we need two more pieces. The park, to your point, and also how the process.
Right, but we can work on that, but
Yeah,
I
that's
just
great.
wanted to circulate that so folks saw it.
Any other questions about this one? Yeah. please.
Question, I was just thinking, Richard Wishney Park, how did that come about?
I know.
Do we have any
Paul, you remember?
historical?
Yeah, good question.
I think that was an existing park.
No, it's on.
Thank you.
Oh.
That was an existing park that was called Reservoir Park that was renamed Richard Wishney Park a couple of years after that park was opened. Similar to that was Crawbucky Park, which was renamed to
But-
It was named when it was opened,
Yeah,
um,
I think so too.
Okay.
in 2012.
okay. But the commencement of the project, when they did the trail and everything, I don't think that was the intent at that time. So, so maybe you're right at the ribbon cutting, but it just happened,
Yeah.
as far as I can recall.
Yeah.
The sign was made reflecting the name that was requested, and the requests were given here at the BOT. It wasn't done with any other review, and that's that. As far as the honorary street namings, that's similar. The most recent one was Reverend Caulfield, and the one right before that was Chief Burton. And then there's random ones throughout the village, like Ken Chin and Peter Falk and
Chirac, yeah.
Sonny Chiracway. Yeah, so and you're right.
And does anybody have a record of all this stuff? I mean, I'm sure the street signs, because you need to know the names of streets, but
they're all honorary, and I don't know that there is a written
well,
record.
we couldn't find anything. And when
No,
the
no,
group
I-
looked,
no,
I shouldn't say we,
resolutions
but the
that were
group.
passed, though,
Right,
that did that
but no, I don't think there is a map with like.
No.
What do you mean, no?
No, you put a bench in one of the parks, there's not a
No, for the
resolution.
streets, there might be
Oh,
resolution.
the streets, yeah.
But there's no map, there's no list, and I will tell you, as many fields as I've been on, some of these fields have multiple honorifics on the same field because there is absolutely no coordination and no master list. So I think it would be really valuable from a number of perspectives. It's the timing of when you do it, like we have something before us right now and we don't have any structure in place and it's a little different. And quite frankly, what this is presenting to us is how deficient we are right now in the status quo of how the decisions are made and what the heck decisions have been made in the past. So thank you, Stuart, for bringing this to our attention.
Has anybody reached out to Jerry Smith about the status of his request?
I do
I
agree.
have not. I have not.
Okay.
So then let's reach out to Jerry Smith and what are we going to tell him? Golly gee, we don't have any sort of system in place, so.
Well, we don't have a process in place to make that determination right now, and that we need to get that going before we can, you know, honestly and fairly consider his request. I mean, right? I mean, that's,
You're sort of then putting a moratorium on naming things when you do that. You're basically saying we're not naming anything till we have something in place.
well, and is
That's
that
what I'm hearing you. I
well-
may be hearing you
well,
wrong.
I'm saying, is that the will of this board to do that, or are we just gonna do things like we always do, and we're gonna take this we're gonna sit here and debate his proposal to, you know, name the park the way he wants it named. So, I mean, that's, I'm just saying, it's either way. Either we're gonna put a process in place that's gonna create a framework for the future for these decisions to be made, or we're gonna make the decision ourselves, you know? And that's really what we have to decide.
And I'm sorry this didn't jump out at me, but the more recent park was the Henry Gordine Park, which
Yeah.
was named
Yes,
after
which
the
we
Harbor
just
Square
did here.
was completed.
Right. Yeah, but at
As
some
we open the
point,
park.
you can always talk about the past, but the past was done, and we can't tear all that stuff down. So at some point, there's always like, is today the day we say, until we have a process. The park and rec is, they don't meet during, but they also have something. And honestly, they were sitting there scratching their head. It's almost not fair because they're a volunteer group, and they're like, well, one person, I don't even know this person. Like, so now, who is this person, and why is this person? I mean, look, you either say it's a free-for-all. You can never say, just because we've been doing it for 30 years, then it's always somebody's always going to get upset because it's exactly at a point in time. It's because they're asking for something that it brings it to the forefront. But I had the same problem with the last time because I'm sort of like, what? So anybody can come up and say somebody's been here for 38 years, they were a teacher, they were this, they were that, and something gets named, it starts sort of, I don't know. I mean, maybe we should just keep doing it, or maybe we should say we need a process in place, but we need to put a timeline. It can't take a year because that's also, you know.
I mean, that's
gotta
the
have
whole point.
something in
Either we're going
place.
to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, this is the way we used to do it, and now, in the next 3 months or the next 60 days or whatever, we're going to define a process that this happens going forward, not only for the park situation, but also for the streets. And we have something that's in place. Right? I mean, this is a sanity check. I mean,
So if
this
we're
is
gonna
what
put,
doing?
if we're gonna have this conversation in a really deliberative manner, where we're going to decide what would be the proper process to put in place, then let's figure out when are we gonna meet to discuss that? How are we, you said that the
They don't
Parks
meet
and
in the
Rec Advisory
summer,
doesn't
but they
meet in
have
the
something
summer?
in front of them, yeah.
I think on behalf of Corporation Council, we have, we'd be given the opportunity to let them really go into the assessment of what exists in the Rochelle right now. We'll try internally to mold it to accommodate all the things that we've experienced, streets, parks, etc. And then we will, again, before we bring it forth, try to sit with the advisory committee and the rec and anybody else that might participate or get drawn into the renaming, and then eventually, and I don't really think it's in a couple of weeks. I think it's in a couple of months at best. We'll come back at a work session, and we'll present something for you to chew on.
So naming a park after this gentleman, there's no time is of the essence. Time is of the essence is that he's requested it, I think it's 2 months ago?
We haven't
Okay.
given them an answer.
So we need to say, look, we're working on a process. You're not the only one. You're the only one that asked for this piece, but there's other things. And so we need to put a time frame, but there is no emergency scenario on something like this. It's like if it's 2 more months before we name that particular park as we want, it's not like something's happening that I'm aware of. It's
No, it's just important that the person who made the request knows that we are
knows
not
that there's
ignoring it.
and with a time frame. Is that correct? It's not like somebody else is competing for that space, or there were, Chief Burton was retiring, people thought that was, I saw the sort of timing issue, but, right? There's
Yeah.
nothing happens, bad or good, if it doesn't happen exactly right now. Is
And-
that correct?
I agree.
Okay.
And council just confirmed that it was Snowden Park that was the request. And I could tell you on a collateral but pertinent issue for this item, the county just emailed me today the results of the second bid for the county sewer project at the bottom of Snowden, which is going to have significant interruption to the Snowden Park once they commence with that work, which it would probably be a little short-sighted to dedicate a park that a large
Gonna be
part of it's
destroyed.
going to be torn up.
Right.
No, but it might be really nice
And reconstructed.
if we're gonna if we're gonna do a naming, to do it once it's just
Well,
been.
again, so
What are we gonna do, name it after the county?
yeah. So let me get my arms around that a little more.
But I don't think that, we're in a public, but I think the important thing is just to get back to
Yeah.
You don't wanna you wanna say we have to wait until the county finally does something, because we've been waiting for the county for 8 years?
Yeah, but how's it gonna look if, well, look, we do whatever we can with the moment that we can. It's,
Okay. So we will reach out for him and explain exactly what happened this evening, should he have not watched the meeting, and we'll go from there.
So no one likes the idea that we should charge people to have their names put on stuff, is what I'm hearing.
No, that was not part of the discussion
That
yet.
just didn't go anywhere.
It's not like a wing of a hospital for $20 million, you get to have your wife's name on it or whatever. Although they do sometimes, like, there have been like,
I
you
beg
know,
to differ.
the Rotary fundraiser for a bunch of the benches and.
I beg
various
to differ.
places.
My community center, if you want to name, to plant a tree or a bench, we do charge for that. It's a not-for-profit, and we.
Well, it's a fundraising
We
effort.
get, it's a fundraising, planting trees, water fountain, all that stuff is considered fundraising, so that, and in our case would be so the taxpayers don't pay for if somebody wants to put something new.
Right, and that's a
And that's another thing
mindset.
we're just gonna go,
That's
yeah.
a philosophy of what are we trying to do? Are we trying to use this as an
I
opportunity
understand.
to highlight great contributions to our community, or are we trying to use it as an opportunity to offset the taxpayer's burden?
Okay.
So all this was on the new topic, on the new
I
business?
have no idea.
So
Just
I
checking.
lost track of
If
what we were
nothing
talking
else,
about.
This was
Paul.
This is
this
the
is the
second
Stuart, what
agenda.
have you got on your stack of
This
stuff?
is-
Yes.
this is- that doesn't even start the stack.
I'm
But that's-
just throwing it out
But
there.
in terms of, for the work session, that's that, so you can.
Who's
I
getting
would
back
ask
to him, though?
when you're following up, thank you.
Somebody has to call, yeah.
I would ask that when you're reaching out to people, obviously the advisory committee for anything to do with the parks and get their input and their experience. Dana White is the village historian who helped do some research on Reverend Cofield,
yeah.
so she'd be another person who would have
Right.
some insight into how this might work well. Sometimes to an individual is helpful.
So we were talking about, name your street, street pride, and the Downtown Economic Development Fund Group, actually encouraging tenants and business owners and different people to know their responsibilities. One of the things that popped up in my mind is that, the tree lining actually outlined downtown Ossining, meaning Village Center. So one of the things that I would like to see while we're talking about Ossining Pride and keeping your streets clean is possibly reintroducing the benches and tables back to Broad Avenue, because you actually don't know that's actually a part of downtown Ossining. So I think while we're actually having a conversation about engaging property owners and tenants and community residents, we should actually make sure that people understand in Ossining that that downtown actually extends to Spring and Broad. So I just wanted to put that in your lap.
Okay.
You just want this meeting to go on all night,
No,
don't you?
no. I just
Yeah,
wanted
but just keep in mind, the benches and all the tables weren't taken out because they weren't part of the downtown. There was other issues going on in that area. So if we are gonna be revisiting anything at all, it should be as a broader scope, not just because of the tables.
But what
and
you're
Ab-
what you're talking about,
absolutely.
what you're talking about is placemaking,
Exactly.
which is a lot of what the downtown revitalization or redevelopment working committee has been talking about. And when we're talking about placemaking and creating gathering spaces where people will organically gather, that Broad Avenue should not be left out of that
Absolutely.
conversation.
But I thought a part of the redevelopment presentation is outlining what's defined as downtown, right?
Exactly. I think you just,
So-
well, it is in downtown, but I think when people are thinking about it, you're making the point that we're thinking about the Five Corners intersection. We may not be thinking about Broad Avenue. And there was, at the intention of those, the chessboards and the tables and the seating that was there was to create an organic gathering space, and it was the police department that asked us to take them out.
Right.
And the administration at the time went along with that request. And what you're suggesting is maybe we should revisit it and think of a fresh way to have some placemaking and some
if there are
positive
issues, we could
investment in
just
that area.
deal with it.
Oh, well, maybe the best way to deal with it isn't just taking away the tables. Maybe it's a little more complicated than that. Understood. And maybe there's a different kind of table that would foster some different behavior that would be positive. All right. Do we have a motion to go into executive session for discussion of personnel with relation to specific persons and real property?
So moved.
Second?
That would
That
have been a yes.
Was I so moved?
That's my
Okay.
official, uh-huh.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I will say, it is July 12th. I'm well aware of that date because it's my 14th wedding anniversary, and I'm not with my husband, but I can't think of any group of people I'd rather spend my anniversary with, if not with my husband, than you folks. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week at the